Hey guys, Pawnce here, and I've had this No Man's Sky game for a little while now, and there seems to be a good amount of interest in it. So I figured I'd give you guys sort of a brief review if anyone doesn't have the game and is thinking, should I get this, whatnot. And there's a lot of talk about that, or if, for whatever weird reason, if you just want to hear my opinions on it for no apparent reason, that's fine too, I guess. But anyway, a bit of background information in terms of where I'm coming from and my sort of views and perspectives. That's always important when you're considering or when you're listening to someone. This game was not, I did not purchase it. It was purchased for me by a viewer, RJ, who very kindly sent it over. So keep that in mind. I didn't actually pay for the thing. He was just kind of watching my stream one day and was like, hey, here, have No Man's Sky. I'm like, all right, No Man's Sky, cool. Thermal protection. That's actually, yeah, we got a lot of time. Don't worry about that. So I'm playing live in the background, sort of. But in any case, as a result, I have about 20-ish hours into the game. I've streamed it about twice, and I play the PC version. Now, while not directly related to the actual in-game stuff, I think the first thing we have to address with this game, simply because it's the first thing you ever encounter typically when talking or hearing anything about this game, is the quote hype and what was promised and whatnot, and blah blah blah. Basically, I never pay any attention to that crap. I haven't here. I never do. So I don't know what was said, who said it, how the claims were made, who's responsible for perpetuating said claims, and why people are really pissed off. That's just, it's that to me. Frankly, from what little I've been able to discern, after the fact sounds rather absurd. So, usually this is a combination, though, of marketing, media clickbaitiness, and sort of a viewership as well, and a readership that's not really exercising enough critical thinking. So, it's probably the blame's pretty spread out, I imagine. No Man's Sky seems a rather perfect storm of this sort of stuff. Being the exact, if I were to guess, the exact kind of stuff that people wanted to be hyped about and therefore allowed themselves to be hyped by this sort of thing. Not to victim blame entirely. But you always got to remember that you shouldn't get too excited about this sort of stuff if you can't verify it yourself that it's actually a thing, or you could rather easily verify the validity of the claims. Just sort of conclude through a reasonable thought process. And so when it turns out that all this stuff was BS. Well, you're right to be pissed off. It's not entirely invalid. It is diminished significantly here. Because let's be real, if you're reading pre-release articles and developer, claims and whatnot, you're probably not new to gaming. You might be. So I mean, maybe there are edge cases. It's all relative. But let's say, for example, some old lady who's never been on the internet before and gets scammed by the Nigerian prince email thing. Okay, I can understand that maybe. But, if you work in IT and you do this for a living and you hand over all your bank account information, my sympathy is a bit more limited. So you just remember, when something is hyped all to hell, it typically means it's going to be pretty average. There are rare occasions when it actually is exceptional, but that's sort of more the exception to the rule there. I think a really good example of this recently outside of gaming is probably that Suicide Squad movie, was it? Yeah. I haven't watched it, but as far as I could tell, it's super average, and people are kind of pissed off about that because they hyped it all to shit. But it's the typical sort of thing. Some human simulant thing in marketing decided there was some unique feature about the thing that they could really market the shit out of, and sort of therefore the product would do better in the end for it or whatever. But anyway, let's get into the actual game here, aside from sort of tangential stuff. The bottom line is, now I know we were starting off on a rather cynical note here. And where I'm going to go with this is going to continue to be somewhat cynical. But the bottom line is, I've had fun with the game. There are good experiences with it, and overall I would say it is an experience worth having. I don't regret playing the game. Again, I didn't purchase it, so maybe my opinions would be slightly different if I was $60 US, down the drain. But, I've had fun. I wouldn't stream this game if I didn't have fun, because I don't stream actually that many games. The atmosphere is very nice, and sort of going from planet to space to planet back and forth. That's really cool, both in concept and practice. It's one of the few features that after all this time I'm still having fun. I'll just show you guys real quick. Just sort of going from here. So I'm on a planet right now. I want to go to space. Let's go to space. Normally the sounds would be a lot louder, but I have them quite low for the sake of this. And suddenly we're in space, surrounded by asteroids. Now these are all the same asteroids, but it is interesting. There's other ships flying around. There's going to be a space station there. So that's the planet we were just on. If I want to go to another planet, I just got to kind of need to go further up into the atmosphere. See, that's new. I actually haven't seen that kind of asteroid yet. See, occasionally you do still run into new stuff, which I'll get into in a bit. Aluminum asteroid. Where is another planet? Let's crash into an asteroid, because we can. This thing isn't like this desolate, is it? Is it just a really bad solar system? I didn't check. Well, I can show you the map as well really briefly here. Here's the map, and this will tell me whether or not there are any other planets in this solar system. There are 2 planets and 1 moon, so that means it's actually entirely possible the other planet is hidden behind this planet here. Okay, there's a space station. So I could warp over to that thing, and if I were to guess, yeah, there's probably a planet like hidden behind the shadow of this planet. So anyway, let's just go back down. And you can, of course, name all this stuff. I've basically named everything I've encountered Pawnce, just to make things as confusing as possible. But okay, so just, do a quick landing here. Takes a little bit of time, but not too long. Re-entry. There we go. The world is loading for us. Let's press E. Just do a quick landing. All right. Now, oddly enough, the thing I probably enjoyed the most about this game, or one of the things I enjoy most about this game, is either an indication of something very good or very bad, and I'm not sure which. Basically, I've had a lot of fun sort of constructing my own narratives in terms of what's going on in the game, entirely in my own head, more so than I have with most other games. Most other games you're kind of busy, there's something actually going on, there's a plot, thrown in your face, and you're busy doing things. In this game, I'm just sort of wandering around collecting stuff mindlessly and having fun in my own head, I suppose. And let's recharge our life support. There we go. Don't die. For example, like while I was still relatively, was relatively early on in this game, and I hadn't experienced much stuff yet, I came across this one planet that was, up until this point, it mostly been very alien landscapes, kind of like this, but maybe a bit more extreme. And I'm going to talk about... Actually, no, he's not going to attack me. That's fine. I'll talk about those guys in a bit. Those are really annoying. Yeah, it was a relatively Earth-like landscape, sort of very snowy, mountainous, and it turns out it was extremely cold, negative 90 degrees on average, Celsius. So I'd go down to the planet, would start killing me. But it was the first planet I had found that was extremely rich in gold resources. So I got my kind of own, internal narrative going on in my head of this being a sort of imaginary frontier planetary gold miner type person that's going to these extreme environments that no one else wants to risk, for the profits. Now, it turns out later on gold isn't all that, uncommon. But, at the time I had an interesting sort of thing, I got to stay out a little bit longer just to get this tiny little bit of gold before I run back to my ship, before I freeze to death kind of thing. And there's this risk-reward thing going on. Or another example would be, not even my own playthrough. I was watching another streamer, Man vs. Game, and he got stranded on like this completely desolate, resource-impoverished planet. And he found a crashed ship. And in order to use this ship, he had to repair it with zinc, but he didn't have any zinc, and the planet had no zinc on it, so he was basically running around for the longest time, stranded on this hellhole of a planet. I was like, well, will he ever make it off alive, kind of thing. But, of course, this is all internal narrative. And so I'm not sure if this is the result of a good atmosphere or a complete lack of things to actually do in the game itself. So essentially what it is really just an illusion of content, I suppose. So, and that's like, I get the problem is a lot of the content just seems recycled over time. One of the claims that I'm sort of familiar with is that there's sort of an infinite universe of infinite possibilities kind of thing. But the new and cool stuff tends to run out pretty quickly. Like I'm running into stuff where, like for example, if you go to a new planet, you're going to see these exact same pumpkins here, maybe slightly, with a slightly darker shade of red on them or something, and there'll be a new name, and you can discover them, but they're essentially the same thing. I already discovered those. Okay, so that's fine, but. Or I've run through dialogue options that are exactly the same on like completely different events, sort of thing. So things are getting recycled rather quickly. Um, Also, like the upgrades and stuff, which I'll show you in a second, they seem really pointless because I never feel threatened at all in this game. The closest I came to dying was when I first booted up the game. This is a problem in and of itself, but I first went into the game and I almost immediately got attacked by those sentinel things you guys saw flying around earlier, and I just didn't know the controls. I didn't know to recharge my weapon, anything like that. So they like did some damage to me, and I ran around while trying to figure out how the game actually worked, then turned around and killed them, and then that was the last time I ever really faced danger in the game, like 20 hours ago. Oh yeah, so the inventory thing. Um, oh yeah, actually, before I show you the inventory, one more thing. Those sentinel things. Basically, anytime you're actually farming stuff, those sentinel guys will decide they don't want you farming things and will attack you. Hasn't really been explained why thus far. They just do. They really remind me of cliff racers from Morrowind. If any of you guys played that, they're just more tedious than threatening. Um, so anyway, some upgrades. The main problem with the upgrades and stuff is the inventory management is abysmal. Like I have a lot of inventory slots now. You start with like about half this or less, I think, and you just have no space to work with, and just things just take up tons of slots, and you need tons of slots to upgrade things. And at the end of the day, it's like very tedious because you have to have certain types of resources in your inventory, which are going to be taking up inventory slots all that time, which are going to be filled up with something else that actually makes you money or whatnot. And it's just very clunky to move stuff around. It seems like there could have been a lot of work done with that. Not necessarily to make the game easier, but just a lot less clunky somehow. Um, so and then the other problem is you do all this work, and then the upgrades are just very pointless. Like for example, I've barely upgraded my suit at all, and I get by just fine. I was doing fine with the default ship with no upgrades, and then I did buy this new ship here with a bunch of upgrades, but they don't seem to make the hugest difference in the world. Maybe they eventually will, but I'm 20 hours in the game here. Going at I would say an average pace. I'm kind of slacking around to show people stuff on stream, but um, like especially the multi-tool though, like the multi-tool makes things less tedious for like the mining upgrades, and there's a whole bunch of combat upgrades which seem completely pointless because I can go around one-shotting those what I referred to as the cliff racers earlier. With this one plasma upgrade, I don't even need that. I could just shoot it with the beam by default. It wouldn't be an issue. And you can't move these upgrades around. And when you stack upgrades in a specific order, they get extra buffs. So when you go to actually upgrade your weapon to a different weapon, like I swap out the multi-tool for a multi-tool with more slots, it messes up like where these things, like these upgrades go, and you can't transfer the upgrades over. You have to dismantle them and remake them in the new thing, and you may not have the resources to actually implement those upgrades in the new thing at the time, because there's a wide variety of them, and the wide variety eats up inventory slots, and it's so like I said, for marginal upgrades, you just got to do all this work, and it's unfortunate because there are some seemingly cool upgrades. A lot of them I haven't even bothered with. Hold on, thermal protection is falling. Let's just go into the ship real quick here. So yeah, like there's some kind of like shotgun upgrade to the thing. There's a machine gun upgrade. I don't use any of this. Like it seems like a huge waste, which leads to another problem that I had or have with the game is a lot of these features really seem glued on and a really kind of sloppy rush job, and that includes sort of like very basic core things, aside from the combat, the UI, even the crafting, the NPC interactions, these little events scattered throughout the universe. Had a little bit more, maybe a lot more, I don't know, but had more effort been put into this, I feel like the game could have been really good, because it already has this really good base of just sort of scale and atmosphere, and exploration, I suppose. But instead, sort of the aforementioned scale, that seems to be used as a feature in and of itself, just purely the scale to drag the game out as long as possible to get the most playtime, if you will. So yeah, no, that coupled with the bugs, which there are a lot of, really makes us feel like an early access game. Lots of promise, and it's fun, and I'm not again, like a lot of cynicism here, but I did have fun with it, and I'm still having fun with it to an extent. But lots of promise, and I'd like to really see what gets added to the game eventually, because I could see a lot of really, really cool stuff getting added to the game to make it really nice. But it's definitely a work in progress. But the bugs include crashing on the console version, which I haven't experienced. Weird audio issues where the audio just cuts out. Spaceship just freaking out and launching straight into space. Remember that thing I did earlier where I kind of... Oh, not enough fuel. Okay. We got to play resource whack-a-mole again. Anyway. So when you launch up, this time it was fine. If you do it near terrain, I'm guessing, or something, it'll just launch you straight up into space, and it's not a huge issue, but it's kind of weird. What else was there? There was the spaceship will just start like spinning and freaking out of control sometimes, which is very strange. NPCs not responding to dialogue choices correctly. Like you'll say, well, I want to upgrade my multi-tool, and then they'll upgrade your suit or something, you know. Maybe you could take that from an RP perspective. It's like, well, they're aliens. They don't understand English. They just fucked it up. But no. Enemies phasing out of existence and clipping in and out of the ground I've had a few times. And I'm not sure if this is a bug or what, but I really would like it to be able to turn that announcer lady, turn her volume down, because she's really loud, and I haven't found out how to do that. Like that, that lady you heard talking earlier was like... energy shield almost depleted or whatever, and she like talks a lot, and it gets a little bit annoying. Also, like when you do any kind of achievement and she says her thing about, or actually she doesn't say anything. I guess this is another issue of sort of like a very poorly implemented feature. There's tons of little milestone things the game will let you know you've been doing, and it'll kind of lock out the screen. It'll go in sort of widescreen mode. And basically, if you're fighting anything, it really messes that up. If you're trying to talk to an NPC, if it locks you out from talking to the NPC, it messes up your farming, and that's quite annoying. And it kind of seems like the thing they should have, gotten rid of in playtesting. Anyway, that's my long list of problems with the game that I said is not bad. So in terms of, if I had to give it an overall rating, now this is a very personal rating, so I don't like these whole, blank out of 10 things, but I'm going to do it anyway because that's what you do, right? And I will explain my reasoning behind this a bit more concisely. But in terms of a raw numeric personal thing for me, I would rate this 6.5 out of 10, I would say. And for me personally, that puts it in the same tier of games as like Guild Wars, where it's like there's a lot of cool stuff, but I ran out of content rather quickly. So it was an amusing experience, and I don't regret having it, but it just could have been a lot more interesting. Now, I realize 6.5 seems very low probably to some of you guys. My metric is going to be a lot lower than your average, well, your Metacritic kind of thing, or, your average reviewer. Like, I'm a lot more conservative with that kind of thing. Like, the best game I've ever played, the most awesome experience I've ever had, whatever that might have been, I'd probably only rate that, like, maybe a 9. I don't know if a 10 even exists in my scale of things. So, just keep that in mind. So, yeah, and... the way I've been playing it is I go into solo queue, League of Legends, deal with that crap all day, and all that entails. So I kind of treat this game as after that, I kind of like turn my brain off. I fly around in circles, mine some stuff, and it's just sort of a very like a casual approach to it. So, I mean, if you want that kind of thing where you just want to casually explore, mine some stuff up, and look at some actually, cool environments, atmospheres, etc., and, do it while blasting in and out of atmospheres, I would say it's worth it. I mean, like, as another relative concept, the value of money to everyone is relative. Is it worth $60 for you? Maybe it isn't. It depends on, if you really like this kind of thing, you got a lot of money rolling around, sure, why not? If you don't have much money and you're eating, I don't know, top ramen for every single meal of the day, and you don't really like these types of games, then, well, no. But anyway, that's my meandering thoughts on this game. Went a bit longer than I thought. Hopefully I actually hit the record button because I don't want to do this again. Thanks for watching, guys. See you around. No Man's Sky.